That's what happens when you get old. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Today's quote is from the Tao Te Ching, verse 35. She who is centered in the Tao can go where she wishes without danger. She perceives a universal harmony even amid great pain because she has found peace in her heart. Music or the smell of good cooking may make people stop and enjoy, but words that point to the Tao seem monotonous and without flavor. When you look for it, there is nothing to see. When you listen for it, there is nothing to hear. When you use it, it is inexhaustible.
There's so much there. I was literally like, okay, try and remember the beginning part of the quote. Do you know what I really appreciate about it though is that it's so true. It's one of those like, you know, when people say like, I'm not scared of death, so I'm not scared of anything kind of things.
Yeah.
You know, It's one of those, like, if you feel like you're like, there's really nothing to worry about, then you won't be worried when you go anywhere. I feel like when you put out that like an example, like going on vacation, you're like, I don't want to get mugged. I don't want to get mugged. And then you're constantly worrying about that, where it's like, why would that even creep into your subconscious? One, and if you're so fixated on that, how are you enjoying your vacation? And shit happens. If it happens, it happens.
Yeah. I think that we manifest things. We don't even realize it just by concentrating on it over and over again. That's honestly like, I don't want to get into it here in this medium of platform, but like, if you think of all the TV commercials, you know, I don't really watch TV that much, but when I'm around people who do, all I see is TV commercials for pharmaceuticals, you know, and it's like, everyone's just sick, you know, if you just watch those all day, you know, I think you get it. But anyway, it goes along with that exactly. So it's really about what we were talking about in last episode too, about your attention. Like you really have to be conscious of where you're putting your attention.
And exactly. And it's one of those, if you put out, and I say this, I feel like to my family all the time, if you put out negativity, like that's what you're going to be drawing back to yourself.
Yeah.
And so like I try to make a conscious effort every day to be in a good place and be happy and positive, because number one, why not? If you believe that there's this short period of time that we're present here, like that's called our life, like why spend that being negative? What are you getting from that?
Yeah, exactly. You only
and it was
live
like
once.
Do you remember? Yeah, exactly. And I always reference, and I feel like some people don't know what I'm talking about. And not that I'm like a huge person that's like obsessed with The Simpsons, because I'm not. But there's this Simpsons episode with this character called Frank Grimes. Did you see that one?
I probably did. It sounds really familiar.
And so he like comes to work at the plant, and he had like this really, really tough life. And it seems like everything's going wrong for him. And then he looks at Homer and he's like, you have this huge house, you have this wife, you have these kids. And he's like, and you're an idiot. And it's like one of those, and at the end, he's like, well, you know, you can do this because you're Homer Simpson. At the end, he ends up killing himself because he's like pretending to be Homer. But it's like, you're manifesting, like there's all of these things that happen. Like everyone's gone through shit. Some people have gone through maybe something a little bit more intense, but like that doesn't negate that I haven't gone through that and I haven't gone through other things. And it's like, turn that around and be like, onwards and upwards.
Yeah, exactly. You know, everybody has their own stuff that they're stuck in. So it's like, I've heard it said like this: it's better to fail on your own path than succeed in somebody else's path. You know, like you have your own path. You're supposed to fail because then you figure out how to move forward.
Exactly. And can you read the end part of that quote? Something about like flavor.
Yeah, sure. So let's see here. The end part is music or the smell of good cooking may make people stop and enjoy, but words that point to the Tao seem monotonous and without flavor. And right there, they're saying the Tao, they kind of mean the way. So though the Tao is sort of like, it's another way to say a way to exist in the world. If you think about it too, it's like the golden rule, like natural law, if you just exist in that state. But anyway, but words that point to the Tao seem monotonous and without flavor. When you look for it, there is nothing to see. When you listen for it, there is nothing to hear. When you use it, it is inexhaustible.
I often also think like that's also saying like sometimes there's these things that seem very attractive and very like in your face and flamboyant. It's like, oh, I want to do that. But sometimes it's like, no, take all that away. The simplest things, which don't necessarily seem the most appealing, is the actual truth. I mean, we could get into conversation of like what is truth, but
No, I think you're hitting it right on the head there, because it seems like it must be glamorous, or you have to feel all this stuff and you got to do it, when it's like, no, the way is just simple. It's just that it's not glamorous and it's not fun. Well, it doesn't seem fun or attractive. It's not like the world, like it's not partying and your wildest dreams come true. Sometimes it's just planting your garden, like, so.
But I often find those things that like, if we're talking about like flavors and things like that, like those are so fleeting.
Yeah.
And then you're left constantly looking for like another fix, right? Something else to fill that void. And trying to chase something like that. And then you just keep going down this spiral of looking for these things that are like, well, this is the next big thing. And this is the next big thing. When it's like the answer is there all along. Everything doesn't have to be so difficult.
It doesn't?
It really doesn't, honestly. Yeah.
No, I know, you're right. I feel I agree. It's so easy. It's just like this quote, people are looking for extravagant answers and complicated things, when it's like, when you look for it, it's not there. When you listen, you can't hear it. It's like, it's just the way things are. Go outside, take a hike in the woods, and just stare at the woods for like an hour. That's the natural order of things.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah. So anyway, how you doing today, Ashley?
I'm doing well, but here's the thing. So
go ahead. Go ahead.
For our listeners, we're starting to post YouTube videos of what it looks like when we're recording, but now I feel so self-conscious. I feel like I'm constantly looking in the camera, like, how do I look? Like, just took a shower, but I'm like, do I look okay? Are my angles good? And I'm trying to like make sure that the camera is like not like catching, my worst possible angle. But so anyway, everyone can watch us now on YouTube to see what it looks like when we actually record, to see the buffoonery that occurs on my end most of the time.
That's funny. That's all right. I'm over here like not even paying attention. I don't even have my contact lenses in, so I can hardly even see what I look like. So hey, world, I hope I look good for you.
It looked like you were like sitting on the back of a seat before, like kind of perched on like the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, I was. Because I have a stand-up desk.
Okay.
I have it all the way down right now, and I have another chair, so I'll sit there, and then I was sitting on the back of it too, because it's actually it's like furniture chair. It's pretty nice. So I do that sometimes, but I'm afraid I'll fall backwards. So I sat back down. That'd be hilarious in the middle of the show. Oh, boom! That was terrible.
And I'll be like, "Are you okay?" But I mean, look at me. I have no furniture here in this house, and so everything I do from this bed.
Nice.
I'm like the fucking grandparents from Willy Wonka. Anyway, so yeah,
but you got a job. That Grandpa Joe, he didn't do shit until like all of a sudden they won that golden ticket. And now you could stand. What about I was starving, Grandpa Joe? What the hell? Just kidding.
That's really true. And it's like, did he really help Charlie?
No.
The fizzy lifting drink.
Yeah.
Did he?
Or was he just trying to live out his dreams through Charlie, that old bastard? No, I'm just kidding.
And it's like, I think we all can agree that there was some feelings of pedophilia there. You're like, what?
Yeah, probably. I mean, that old movie. Yeah, you trust me, all of Hollywood's just a little weird sometimes. You're like, what?
There was this SNL sketch a few weeks ago, and it was Dan Levy was the host, and he was like doing the Universal Studios tram tour in Hollywood, which is where you go through the back lot and you get to see like the sets or whatever. And so he's like, this is where they filmed Back to the Future. Here's a fun fact. Doc Brown was actually a pedophile, and then he goes through this whole thing, and like the people on the tram are like, what? Anyway, that made me think of it. Okay, let's move on. So what are we doing today? Today we are talking about the Six of Wands. So we'll look at the Six of Wands and the Rider-Waite deck, kind of dissect it, talk about how it applies to different readings, and then we will jump into the same card but in a different deck. For those of us that are just listening for the first time, make sure you follow us on our Instagram at Terrible2, TAROTBULL and the number 2. Or you can check out our Facebook page, which is the Terrible Podcast. So we'll post pictures and stories and now videos there so you can see what we look like. And if you want, book a reading with us. So let's jump in here. I normally do the description for this part of the podcast. I look at the card and then we'll kind of talk about our initial thoughts and feelings on it. Okay, so I'm looking at this card. You've got this blue background, a light blue background, and then right in like kind of the center of the card, you see a figure on a horse. The horse is like draped in this greenish, I mean, blanket, cloth, tunic, and it's a white horse. The figure has these orange tights and like a red cloak over, like it looks like maybe a yellow tunic, and he has a laurel wreath on his head, and he's holding a wand in one hand that has up at the top like a wreath. And then in the background you see on the left hand side some figures holding some of the other wands, two of the other wands. So it looks like two figures holding two other wands. And then perhaps behind the horse, there's other figures holding the other three wands. Again, if you really want to see what the card looks like, you can look at our Instagram and it'll be up on there. Okay, Brandon, initial thoughts here.
Well, initially when I looked at this card, hang on a second. All right, so my initial thoughts when I looked at this card, it looks like somebody's coming back from a celebration or like a parade or a battle.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll say he's coming back from a battle or something, and there's a celebration or a parade going on. That's kind of what it looks like to me here. And it's like, it reminds me of, I'm trying to think, any of those movies that you see where after like Lord of the Rings or anything like that, where after there's a giant battle and people are coming back to be celebrated, and kind of like the normal people, they're giving them what's up. And I love how he has one stick because everybody else has the other wand. So it's kind of like they already been on this journey and they're just waiting for him to get there, you know? Like, yep. Oh yeah, we got this. We're here. And now it's your turn. So they're celebrating him. So it's kind of like camaraderie. It's like that next step that you have to take. It could also be showing, I get like a feeling when I look at it originally, kind of like a call to action. Like he's getting up on his horse and he's getting these people ready to get fired up and lead him somewhere.
Okay. I'm going to say that it reminds me very much of, I totally agree with you. Like when you come back from a series, like a war or a series of battles, and there's that parade, like that parade of the victors coming in, and then behind them you'd see like the spoils that they got, and the person who like led it is at kind of at like the beginning, like marching, like almost like in this godlike status, right? Of like, I was able to accomplish all of this kind of stuff. So I would just say it seems like a card of victory and winning, even though what I just said kind of a little bit of a negative connotation to it. I feel like it's definitely like a positive card of like winning and success.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's go into the different parts of it here. Let's start off looking at, like I always want to do, the background. You know, and let me jump in. I'll go first here. So we looked at last week the 5 of Wands, and there was that blue background. We had the 5 different figures, and they were all standing on the ground. So I'm looking at this card, and it kind of is the same in terms of you have the light blue background, and then you have this horse wearing this like green like tunic, and to me it kind of gives the like that feeling of being like proud and happy and confident in what you've achieved and the success and the victories you have. There's that blue part, that emotionality, but they're kind of grounded because the horse is wearing that green, so let's call it like the color of like the earth or plants or things like that, and they're sitting atop of it, so like they're still grounded in the reality and they realize what actually happened, but they're kind of letting themselves have that moment of feeling happy.
Yeah. And it could also be, speaking of the 5 of Wands, it could be the 5 of Wands, and this is the next scene. This guy just showed up with a horse, kind of like saying, all right,
Brandon.
Yeah.
And now he's like, remember we were talking about the guy in the red in the 5, and look at what he's wearing.
Yeah. Yeah,
He like
exactly.
overcame that fight with those other like kids or whatever, and now he's like, see,
Or maybe he's even the adult because there's still five. There's still the five wands that are there originally from the five of wands. Like he just rolled up on the scene, and he's like, maybe those guys are practicing, and now he's like, all right, it's ready for war now, guys. Like I know you're practicing, but let's go, or whatever it is. It's time to get serious.
or they're like practicing because they want, and they're like playing pretend like to be him, and then he rides by, and they're all like, oh, there he is. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh!
exactly.
Speaking of there he is, look at this little angel right here in the
Ooh,
background.
whoop, there she is. What's up, Giz?
She's just like, I'm gonna just sit here and watch.
Giz, you're on camera now for real.
I know. Everyone's gonna be like, the star of the show is Ashley's dog Gizmo.
Right. Oh, we already know that.
Oh my gosh, but I love that. I didn't even connect like the colors and everything like that, but I am like now obsessed. Okay, so
Well, I didn't just not, really quickly before we go on, I didn't notice that until you said just like the five of wands. And then I was like, wait a minute, those are the same kids and they're five wands back there.
mm-hmm.
So, and then I also like how with the sky, because in the five of wands, there's way more sky.
Yep.
So this guy came up to give them perspective. So like before, if you guys listened last week and you heard what I said about the five of wands, he was, the people were playing, but they weren't concentrating on what was going around them. They're very in the moment. That's why you saw a lot of sky because everything was just so far away. The horizons were so far away. Now this guy rolls up and their attention is boom right on him.
Mm-hmm.
So they're focused again. That's what I like about these cards, because they represent the patterns in life. It's like a wave, it's up and down.
Yes.
There's pits and then there's pedestals. And, I think if we realize that, because Hermetics talks about that, if you read the Kabbalion, they talk about how people are able to escape the pendulum swing, because the way that they explain it is they say life is kind of like a swinging pendulum. Sometimes it goes one way and it goes the other. And,
Mm-hmm.
you have your feelings and your moods could be attached to that too. But once you start getting into perspectives and realize how things work a little bit, they say that it's possible to vibrate and to avoid those swings. So you could still have a good time and enjoy it. And then when it comes back around, you could look at it in a different way and you don't, take it as personally kind of. So, but keep listening to this show, guys. We'll tell you how to do it. Don't worry.
I
We have
love
all
that.
the answers. No.
I love that though, because there's going back to what we were talking about earlier with the quote is like, I feel like there's such a feeling of when you're like at the lowest point of like things will never get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it swings the opposite way, that there's this feeling of, for a lot of people, when they feel like they're on the top, at the top, they're like, they don't realize how easy it is to go back down.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll say, my kitty's coming to say hi. I don't know if the green screen's going to let you see him. But I felt like that when I was younger a lot. Like I would always notice that when things were going really well, I would say to myself, all right, enjoy it now, but don't get too crazy because it's going to swing back around and it's going to suck.
Yep.
So I figured it out on my own, the pendulum swing, without being told what it was. And I had my own way to kind of deal with it. And even when I was younger, what I would do, like when I say younger, so I'm 44 now. So like when I was in my 20s and stuff, and even my teens, 20s, 30s, maybe, to get through stuff before I came on to like the tarot and all this divination and all this way to look at my life, what I would do is I would just when the pendulum would swing back that way and it was shitty times, I would just realize it, and then I would try to look for humor and comedy and things to make me laugh. And in that way I was rising above it. Like I would watch South Park, like back in the day, and everyone's like, oh, it's just shitty dick jokes, but they would accurately make fun of the world in a way, because I saw the world as a certain way and a lot of people didn't see it or just refused to, I guess, and they would make fun of it. So it would make me feel validated. I'd be like, all right, I'm not crazy, and I'd be happy. So that was my secret way to do it. Now I still use comedy. I listen to different comedians, and I like Owen Benjamin. He really talks a lot of crap about what's going on. So stuff like that, it helps, because so many times you feel like you could be a lot lost in despair, especially these days with a lot of things that are going on. And if you're able to laugh at it, it's like, that's like you said before about having a fear of doing things, or having a fear of death, really is what it comes down to. And if you can overcome that fear in your life, it's amazing, because I don't know, I feel that's when you're able to live. Not like you want to die. It's just that you make peace with it. That, guys, listen, we could die at any time. You have to remember that,
And but going back to what you said, I think especially um finding the humor in something makes it feel that it's not so heavy, but also it makes you feel like it's not that important.
Yeah.
Like even if we're gonna get like really grim here, I think that it's really important if you have like if you have to go to like a funeral or something like that, when people share stories, but they're like funny stories, to be like, see, like, but that's just like the cycle of life, right? People are gonna come into your life, they're gonna leave your life, either you know just like walk out of your life or they're going to die. Like that's just what happens.
Yeah. And you can accept it, or you could deny it. Those are the two choices. And that's a choice each person makes. And that's what causes the suffering. So, good example is like a year and a half ago, a really good friend of mine passed away. And I was really sad about it. And I was really bothered. But I noticed, like myself, I didn't outwardly seem as sad as everybody else. And I was
Mm-hmm.
able to still maintain composure and get things done. And like I spoke at his funeral and stuff. And I feel like, everybody's different and everybody deals with death differently. And, my cousin passed away when I was 16. And then a year later, two of my friends passed away that I was not really super close with, but like one kid I used to play basketball with once in a while, and we hung out with the same friends, and another girl I used to talk to all the time. So I guess I was pretty good friends with her, but so they passed away. And after that, I just had this whole, especially when my cousin the year before, I was just like, at first I was going crazy and I was crying and stuff. But then once I realized there's nothing, I mean, I don't know what it was exactly at the time, but I feel like I just realized, I embodied it and I accepted that, hey, we're all going to die. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So his sacrifice, or him dying, his sacrifice, it sounds like we sacrificed him or something. Actually, both of them passed away in a motorcycle accident, both these two people I'm referring to. So him passing away, he was 25 and I was 16. I was able to see the world in a different way for how it really is. And ever since then, I don't deal with death the same as a lot of other people do. I don't get as sad. I don't know. Maybe it's because when I meet people, I just know that we're all going to die and I already accept it, and I kind of try to
Mm-hmm.
just enjoy the time when I can remember to be around them. I used to not be like this, but this is really, I feel, I don't know, just living not in denial. Anyway, we're getting lost on this whole tangent, but I think it's great for people to hear though, because this is something that we all deal with. Obviously, death as we get older, we're going to have to deal with people that die, and you're going to have a choice to make.
Yep.
How are you going to deal with it? Are you going to accept it or are you going to deny it? Because when somebody dies, they're still with me in my heart. I could still remember all the times, I don't know. I guess it's just different for everybody.
Just like the interpretation of every card is going to be different. See how I brought it back here?
Ooh,
It's
look
like,
at
look at
you.
that. I
That's
know.
why I keep you around, because you can keep bring it back when I get lost. That's the only reason, everybody. After this, back in your cage, Ashley. No, I'm just kidding. After the
um,
show. And
okay.
Giz doesn't go in a cage, though. Don't worry, everybody. Just Ashley.
Gizzy just sits outside on the bed, like, I'm gonna make a little nest out of these pillows. Sweet angel. Okay, so let's look at the now at the figure on the horse. Okay, what do you think there?
Um, this guy looks like, super confident. He's looking
Mm-hmm.
straight ahead. He doesn't seem, when we were talking about that pendulum swing. So this could be a time if he did ride up on those boys and they're like, wow, and they're celebrating him. Maybe he's this guy who's important, but he doesn't let their praise blow his head up. He doesn't let it inflate his ego, or he doesn't let whatever they say deflate his ego if they say something bad, because he knows, he's got it all together. He's on that horse. He's riding in confidently. This guy's a strong, like mature man, mentally and physically. So that's what I really like. And that really goes back to what I was saying about death. It's like, are you going to be an adult or are you going to be a child? And I'm not saying you shouldn't be mean or mourn anyone that dies or anything like that. I'm just saying when somebody dies, you know, sometimes people will just check out
Yep.
and that doesn't help anybody around them. I don't know. I'm just making judgments at this point. But anyway, yeah. What did you think about this guy? He looks like he's about ready to go to war or something.
I feel like there's this kind of stoicism associated with like being in the military. And I feel like that kind of what he embodies to me. He's wearing the laurel wreath, which was the symbol of victory. Color wise, he's wearing this like red tunic. To me, it just seems like kind of like he maybe had like this personality that kind of was easily adapted to a fight. Um, and he's holding this one wand that also has like a wreath on there that's almost like a gift or a demonstration of the fact that he did win and he was successful. I love that you said he's looking straight ahead, and and you're right, he is. And it's like his head isn't tilted up like he's looking down on everyone, but he's just looking straight ahead of like kind of like, for me, looking on to, let me enjoy this praise, this parade, but I'm looking on to the next thing because I realize that this is fleeting.
Yeah, he's got great posture, and I love what you said, because that's kind of what I meant when I said he's ready for war. I didn't mean like he wants to go to war, but what I'm saying, yeah, like you said, he's stoic and he's ready for anything that's going to happen. And that, I love that you mentioned the laurel wreath around his head, because that's also a symbol of, could it be a symbol of control? Like, so when you see the laurels and stuff, the hedges around any of the college symbols, you see like the shield and stuff, then you see the laurel. A lot of times what that represents is control in a way, but it's in here, it's kind of a good thing because he has it around his own head. So what he's telling you is he has control of himself. He's not letting these outside ideas penetrate. And what I mean by that, I don't mean like, I mean like fear. He's not letting fear penetrate, or even like excitement or his desires. He's not letting his desires rule his mind. He is in control of his mind, and he has that wand, and with the top of the wand is that other reef, and he's kind of showing everybody, look, I did this, and this is how you could do it. You could use this wand as a tool, where they were kind of using it before in the 5. They're fighting around with it and stuff. This is like when it's time to get serious, they all stop and they see like, this is the guy who's next. So say if they're like Boy Scouts or whatever, this is like the Eagle Scout walking by, you know what I mean? Like if they're all recruits in the military, like in boot camp, this is like when their sergeant goes by, or somebody that just, maybe it's somebody that just graduated too. It could be someone that's just a little ahead of them, and they get to see it. They're like, wow, look, that's what I can be if I do what I have to do, if I get my shit right.
But do you know what also, you were talking about he's not letting this affect him, he's not letting this affect him, but it also doesn't seem like he's letting pride affect him. And I feel like pride is, there's the 7 deadly sins. I feel like it's probably the most dangerous one, because there's this air of superiority and an infallibility associated with it. And I feel like it just leads to everything else.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and it could lead to the largest like kind of disasters or problems too, because I don't know, if it's like sloth, if like 100 people are lazy, it's bad for them, but if one prideful guy is too crazy, it could kill like 1 million. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so let's now move to the horse. What are your thoughts there?
Well, to me, this horse just symbolizes the next step, really. Like all the other guys are on the ground. So if you think of ground forces, if you want to be in the cavalry, you have to be advanced. You have to first master the ground. You have to be a good fighter on the ground with the sword and be stable and ready to go. And then master the horse, just riding a horse, and then master fighting on a horse. So there's like so many levels to it. So this guy's just like that next level of confidence. And I love that it's white too, because it's pure. Like you said, it doesn't look like he has any pride or anything or any ill intention. He's just riding through doing his thing.
Exactly. So I'm looking at it as it kind of mimics his positioning and his attitude. And he's looking back at him, almost like kind of bowing down to him, of like, you're the master. And I will do kind of what you're asking me to do. And he's covered in all of these like adornments that also look like they're reflective of the success of whatever campaign they were on.
Yeah.
You know, because notice he's not you don't see the saddle. He's wearing this like very kind of elaborate, I don't even know what that would be called on a horse. It looks kind of like a dress. But so like that dressing, it's like just to showcase like this is what we did, these are the rewards we got. And the horse is very much, it seems the horse seems very much in tune with the fact that like you led us to this victory.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
love it.
let's look at the people in the background. What are your thoughts there?
Well, what we can see, one of them's looking at him, one's looking away, and then the other person you can see kind of to the right, like next to the left of the horse's head, it looks like a hat looking the other way. So it looks like there could be something already going on, and he's showing up to it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the celebration wasn't exactly for him, because at first it looks like that, but if you really inspect the card, only one guy's kind of looking at him, and he's kind of like looking over his shoulder to him. So maybe he's showing up to this fight or whatever it is, celebration or party, and he's there to take him to the next level. That's kind of how I feel. He's like, and it's not like the way I was describing it before, it seems like he's maybe just one step ahead of these, because earlier I was saying how he's like far advanced and all that, but maybe he's just at that next level. Maybe he just graduated and that's what's going on. It's like a graduation ceremony, and they're all there. They're like the class or whatever before him. And whatever, it could be school, it could be,
Mm-hmm.
a military thing, it could be whatever.
So I'm looking at it as these people are very reflective, like public adoration,
Hmm.
almost like they're not worshiping, but applauding and praising him and following him, and just like cheering him on, saying like, and again, going back to him, like he's obviously not letting it affect him, but it feels like, they're trying to like revel in the spoils of the victory, but at the same time, like say like this was all because of you.
Yeah, I like that. And like you said, we keep going back to it, but he's just remaining very stoic. And I think this, it reminds me, there's this Robin Williams movie, Good Morning Vietnam. Good Morning Vietnam. Such a good movie. And there's a part where Robin Williams pays this guy. So he's in Vietnam. He's a radio guy, and he's like this crazy radio DJ. And they put him in Vietnam in the early parts of the war, right? Or whatever. When it's not even a war yet. They keep calling it a conflict. So
Okay,
he
it was
does this.
never Brandon. It was never a war. Let's just.
Yeah, well, it was never declared war. Yeah, I know. Trust me. It was. If you really want to look into what it was,
It was a mistake. I'm sorry. I'm gonna zip it. I'm gonna stop here. I'm not.
No, I think, well, we could talk about the Vietnam War. I'm sure nobody's getting triggered. The people, even if you were a Vietnam vet and you went there, we get it, man. I was in the Marines. Like, listen, when you get there, you're fighting for the person next to you. That's what happens. That's how these wars are. Anyway, so, but the Vietnam War, in Good Morning Vietnam, we'll get back to that. So Robin Williams is this radio guy, and he's out at a bar one day, and he sees this very beautiful Vietnamese woman, and he follows her. He's like, it's like the funny chase scene. He's following her because all the women are dressed the same, and he's with this other guy who's the guy in the base, whatever. And he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "No, there she is." And it looks like he's chasing all these other women. So he gets to this classroom where there's another military guy who's American, and he's teaching all these Vietnamese people English. So he pays the guy to teach the class. He just gives him all this money, and the guy takes off. So now he teaches this class during the day, and he's talking to this guy later in the movie. He's just a Vietnamese citizen, older guy, and he's asking him what happens. He's like, "All right, if the waiter came in and he spilled a bowl of soup on your brand new pants," he's like, "What do you do?" And he's like, "I just remain reticent." And the whole time, no matter what, he's like, "All right." He's like, they're brand new pants. You paid more than a color TV. He's like, "I just remain reticent." And he goes, "All right, the guy has a fork and he's stabbing you in the eyes. What do you do?" And he's like, "I remain reticent." Like, the guy just keeps saying it. It's kind of like a joke. And I feel that those other cultures, like Vietnam and China and everything, a lot of stuff out of Asia, they have a different way of looking at the world. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
here, we would just look at ourselves immediately as the victim, like, look at me getting, and I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying that was a really crazy example. But I highlighted it because this guy is saying, "You're getting stabbed in the eye. What are you going to do?" "I'm just going to stay there." And obviously, I'm not saying you should just do that, right? You should defend yourself. But the reason I brought this up is because just to highlight that that point of view and that state of mind, because it is attainable and achievable if you work at it. And that's kind of what this guy's embodying. He just wrote in, because sometimes you're going to have to do things in life, or maybe you're not going to, but sometimes people have to do things that require that stoicism when things go wrong. If you've ever been in an emergency situation and somebody gets hurt, somebody's dying, other people could be at risk if you don't act. And I'm not saying that could be just a car accident. You could be walking down the street and somebody could crash their car, so that's really what that stoicism to me embodies, or that's what this guy's really showing when he shows up to the party. No matter what, he's just himself. And it doesn't mean he can't have a good time, let back, relax, and laugh, but he's just letting them know he's there for business right away, and then let's have a good time. Yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah, no, but you're so right. Yeah. Also, I've never seen that movie. It is on my
movie.
list. It is on my list. I'm slowly making my way through things. I'm going to be honest with you. I sent you that picture last night. I started watching Lord of the Rings, but I made it about halfway through and I had to fall asleep. I was exhausted.
Yeah, no, that's fine. What did you think? Did you like it so far? That one's a little slow. Are you watching Fellowship of the Ring?
Yes, because I told you I'm trying to get through like the 100 best movies of the last 100 years. And so it is that one. It's really hard for me to watch a movie with very few female characters. And as of right now, I've only seen one at the point where I fell asleep, and it's Liv Tyler. And I'm not saying that I always identify with a female character, but it's one of those like that I could see why I didn't watch it when it came out, because I have only sisters, and us watching that, it would have been like, oh, like, who are we relating to in this,
Well, good news for you, Ashley, because later on, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a couple different female characters that
we all know who I'd really identify with looks wise, and it's clearly Orlando Bloom. Like, I basically look exactly like him, beautiful long flowing white hair. I haven't even seen him. I don't even know if he's in this movie, but I have heard Gollum, and as a kid, like, I remember in high school being obsessed with Gollum, even though I didn't really know who he was or anything. I just liked his look and his voice. So that's where I'm at right now.
All right, well, all I could say is it'll definitely get better for you. I understand what you're saying. I can't understand exactly because I am a man. So, but I know what you're saying because I've tried to watch movies where it's all females, and I'm like, who am I supposed to relate to here?
Right, exactly.
I hear you. And I think it's funny because like a lot of people in Hollywood or whatever, especially these days, they try to diversify everything, and it's kind of like they ruin it because, in my opinion, sometimes they put people in roles that they shouldn't be in, and it's like, if you make it unrealistic, then I get what you're saying,
right?
Who could be heroes, but then it's silly. But anyway,
but see, like, and I obviously we're going on a tangent here, but like growing up, like we watched like Charlie's Angels, but that's because there's 3 very strong women in the central roles, and so then you have this person Charlie, you never see him kind of leading them, and you have like kind of like the bumbling guy that organizes everything that also helps keep them, like, but it was like those were secondary characters. And if they came out with a Charlie's Angels, they just came out with a new movie which I haven't seen, but like the idea of doing that, but they're not 3 women, like I would watch and I'd be like, why? Like, why are you ruining that? Okay. Anyway, so let's move on.
It's like anything else in life. I'll bring it back now because
yes,
I'm good. But it's like anything else in life. There's a balance to it, and I don't know. You can look into all these what's going on in Hollywood, and you could see how society changes, and you could say, is it a coincidence or But again, I don't want to look at myself as a victim because it's 2021 and I'm not a victim. I'm a creator. I'm making things in this world. And people better watch out. No, I'm just kidding. They better watch out for my book at shadowwork.com. You can go there and
yes,
shadowworked, SHADOWORKED.com. And you could sign up with your email and get my book because it should be out soon.
And it's worth the read.
Yeah, Ashley knows because she's read it, or at least some of it.
No, I've read the whole thing. Okay, so let's go back to the card here. Let's say this card came up in a general reading. What would you say?
All right, if this card came up in a general reading, similar to what I said last week, I would just kind of expand off of that, and I would say, listen, now it's time to actually take the action. This is the person that you need to be right now for the situation you're facing, the guy and the horse, and you could do it. You just don't think you can. And why not? Because maybe the way you're raised, all the things that happen to you, what people said to you when you were younger, school, we think we go to school to learn all these things, but then we end up just memorizing stuff. And if we're bad at memorizing their random facts, we get told that we're bad, so a lot of that stuff I think could stick with you, and it becomes this self-talk that you say. And so you have to realize that you are possible of being that guy on the horse, and
Hmm.
then you just don't do it tomorrow. It's not like Spider-Man. Sometimes that happens, you can have like an upgrade, but it's not like just Spider-Man where all of a sudden the next day, you're sick for 3 days and then all of a sudden you can climb walls.
Yep.
It's not like that. Sometimes you got to work at it. You got to climb that wall and fall, climb it, fall, and then get better and learn to fall and then not be afraid to fall. That's really what it's about.
And I'm going to take that even a step further. So for me, if it came up in a
How
general
dare you?
reading,
I'm just
it'd
kidding.
be like, obviously there's like this success and this idea of victory. But what I'm going to say is you can't have success unless you fight for something. I'm not going to say, you know what, I'm starting this new business. And like you said about Spider-Man, I'm going to wake up tomorrow, I'm going to have like 100 clients somehow. Like I'm out there hustling kind of with, nose to the grindstone, literally trying to make things happen so that, and it will make the success all the more sweet. You know what I mean? There was that documentary that came out last year, The Last Dance, about the Chicago Bulls going for their sixth NBA title. And the dedication, love him or hate him, Michael Jordan, but like the dedication he had to the game, you saw that because he was great.
Yeah.
He didn't just like, you know what? I don't need to practice. Like I'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like he was the first one there in the morning and the last one there at night because he wanted to be the best. And that makes the victory and the success all the more sweet because you know the work you've put into it. So kind of if the card came up in a general reading, I'd say like there is this possibility for success, but don't let laziness or kind of it came up, so what's going to happen for me, like get into your mindset, like keep pushing forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Using that as
Failing.
like a little bit of a message for myself as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really what it's about. It's the inner work. And, because I found that a lot of times when I have a problem with somebody else or somebody else out in the world, it's just that it's a problem that I see within myself, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm projecting it out into the world. So say if like, you had a problem where you like to I don't know, you know, scream at people and I also did that. I'd be like, why is Ashley always screaming at people? What the fuck is wrong with Ashley? And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm also
Yes.
screaming at people. But and another thing too is I found this in the past, like when I had self-esteem. Well, I mean, I still have self-esteem issues. I've overcome them a lot, but that's why I always say that I'm so great. It's kind of like it's making up for all the negative self-talk that I've done.
Fake it till you make it.
That's right. I'm great. Well, I already know I'm great. That's not fake, but yeah. But yeah, I think that I totally lost my point. So why don't you take it away, Ashley?
Okay, so let's go into if this came up into a love reading, and I'll go first here. So I always
Perfect.
dissect it between being single and being with someone. And if this is you're with somebody and you're in a relationship, I'd say this is just like being totally enamored, that your partner is being totally enamored with you, almost like putting you up on a pedestal, like I hate when people say this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. That being said, Gizzy is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. But I hate when people say that about a relationship because it's like that should not be the greatest thing that ever happened to you. You should be the greatest thing that ever happened to you. And this person adds on to it. But if you're in a relationship, I feel like it's one of those kind of naive, immature type of feelings of like putting your partner up on a pedestal and thinking they're so great. And the reality is all you're doing is creating inequalities there, right? You're thinking this person can do no wrong, and then you're always looking up to them, which to me does not signal a successful or honestly healthy relationship. But and if you're single, I'm going to say that this would be kind of the indication of you're going to have success in your love life. You're going to be able to rise above either your past relationships or your past experiences. But I think there can be a confusion in there. Because I feel like a lot of the readings I do, people are always like, I want to know about relationships, which is fine. That's great. But they're looking for like you to say, you're going to have this relationship. And it's like, but when you go out looking for it, a lot of times you don't find it. So it's like he's so proud of himself and established and successful in his own right. And that's what's going to draw in other people. He's not like looking down like, please, somebody like me, because you know who you're going to find then? People that are going to take advantage. My own thoughts. All right. What do you think about this coming up in a love reading?
Well, first I'd like to say that, yeah, I think you're dead on there because the pedestal thing is huge. And the other half of that was something I learned last year in 2020 was the pit. So whenever somebody is put on a pedestal, somebody else must be put in a pit. And so you're putting somebody on a pedestal because, or, you know, when somebody's put on a pedestal, so you could even happen to you if somebody puts you on a pedestal, they're
Mm-hmm.
pointing out only all your positive attributes, all the good things about you. And it's not really good for you because it's, especially if you're not honest with yourself, that's when it really becomes a problem. Because if you're honest with yourself and you don't take things personally, you know how to deal with that and you could figure it out. But if not, then you might start to let your head inflated. You could think that you're doing no wrong, and then you could start to walk all over this person and not even realize it. And then the person in the pit, obviously, that's a terrible place to be because you're looking down on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about just being equal with everybody. It's like we're all people, we're all on the same footing. We all have great characteristics, and we all have bad tendencies. And it's just about, have we developed those tendencies into good characteristics? Have we figured out how to integrate those parts of ourselves one at a time? And that's when we can elevate in a way to just be I would say like a beacon or an example for
Mm-hmm.
people, not even coming from like a place of I'm better than you. So if this came up in a relationship, to add to that, I would say that if you were single, you know, we looked at that 5 of wands before. That's kind of like playing around. This is like time to step up. And if you want to be a man or a woman, if you want to track that mate
Mm-hmm.
that is going to build something with you, then you can't play games. You know, you have to be a real person. If you want a real person, you have to put out there what you want. You know, if you want a real relationship and someone that's dependable and someone that is going to take care of your needs, you also have to do that. But it starts, like you said, with loving yourself. Because if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody else? Because if somebody else loves you and you hate yourself, don't you think eventually you're going to be like, what's wrong with this person for loving me? Because I'm a piece of shit. When you
Mm-hmm.
hate yourself, you might say that. So that's what I would say. And if you were in a relationship, it's the same thing, really, because if you want to save this relationship, that's what you have to do. You have to step up and become a real equal partner.
And look, there's going to be times, ebbs and flows, like you were talking about with the pendulum, when you're in a relationship where one person seems like they're being less of a piece of shit than the other. But, at the end of the day, like it should always be equal. Okay, let's say that this card came up in a career focused reading. I felt such a connection to this. I'm so sorry. I'm like jumping in. I'm like, I didn't even give you a chance to even speak. But I think that's
No,
fine.
go ahead.
I don't think you care.
No, that was perfect what you said about that. It was great what you said, because it really is about a balance. What you said there at the end of what I said. Yeah.
So, if this came up in a career reading, I would say this is the success of a potential project or something that you've been working on, or whether if maybe you're unemployed, like so many of us are, this could potentially be the offering of a job, like all the hard work. And if you are unemployed, or everyone's applied for a job at one point or another, like, you have to send out like 1,000 resumes to hear one thing back. And so it's finally like getting that recognition or being successful either in your current position or getting something maybe it is like a raise or a promotion or getting just a job in general. And then I always like talking about, this came up in a career focused reading, what kind of careers this would focus on. And for me, it very much had to do with like advertising and marketing. And I feel like it's just very much putting this illusion out there. Like I just said, fake it till you make it. And I'd also say, and I kind of hate the word, but I'd also say this could be potentially like an influencer.
Like an Insta influencer?
And I love that now we do have the video, because you'll get to see me doing my little air quotes like every time I say something that I want to do an eye roll with. Okay, what are your thoughts if this comes up in a career reading?
Yeah, I mean, I really like what you said, and I think you're totally right. And just to continue on my theme of working for yourself, when you work for somebody else, like if you get offered a job, a dream job, 200,000 a year, it's like, wow, 250 a year, and I could do marketing. What do I got? I just got to do this. Even if it's something you like to do, at the end of the day, like for example, me with the DJing thing, right? If I'm doing somebody's wedding, I have to meet with them and stuff, which I like. But I would also, if I wanted my own business as a DJ, I'd have to advertise. I'd have to go out there and talk to people and set appointments and stuff. So I don't like to do all that. So I work for a company that does that. So in my example, it cuts out all the stuff I don't want to do, and I could spend my time doing other things, right? So now I could be a DJ. Well, not as much anymore these days, but I'm able to be a DJ and make a little bit of money that way. And now I can also focus on things like writing my book, doing podcasts like this, just other sources of income, doing readings. And as I start to do that, now this is the stuff in the DJing too. I love that stuff. Now, say somebody who gets a job offer for like 200,000, whatever it is, all this money, they still have to perform a task that they're really not happy about doing. They're just like, I don't want to do it, but they do it because it's the money and it's worth it. And it's like, it's pretty easy, but all that time that they're creating for somebody else, or just, it really is, at the end of the day, you're creating no matter what it is. You can look at it as creation. You are basically a mini creator, because you're creating mentally your whole day, really. So if you're creating for somebody else, it's going to manifest, and it could manifest in the form of anxiety or stress, and in those
Burnout.
and those mental conditions often manifest in physical conditions, as sicknesses or illnesses later. So
Breakdowns.
yeah. And then if you really look at what money is at the end of the day, you can't take it with you. How much can you actually have? And there's a balance there to be safe and secure, but also be a free person who's creating for yourself. So that's what this card really embodies. Like I said, in the relationship part and in the general reading, this is the person you have to become if you want to move on to that next step and actually do things for yourself. You're going to have to not take things so personally, be more stoic. Not saying you can't have a good time and laugh. I mean, look at me, that's all I do. But you do have to step up and take responsibility and get work done. In my example, I have to edit, and I have to do all this, this writing, whatever it is. I have to actually get down, sit and do it. Like video editing, I have to sit there and do it. And I can't just put it off. I don't have somebody over me writing a schedule. So these are the things that I have to do, and then I also have to enjoy free time and have a good time, but there's a balance there,
Yep.
and it's up to me to decide that. And what's great about that is my success at the end of the day is all up to me. It takes right place, right time, but you have to be ready to go and have that foundation all set. So,
and I often find, I'm sorry, now I'm going to just do a little tangent, but
no, you're good.
When you do work for somebody or work for a company, your success is their success.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because there's no I in team, but at the same time, it's like, no, I want to be celebrated for the hard work I put in for this. We might be all under the same umbrella, this guise of we all get paid from the same person, but this was my thing. And that could just be like a little self-centered aspect on my part of, but I think that's also important. You're right. You have success. It's for you, period.
Yeah. It comes back to the self-love, especially if you're in a situation where you're working with other employees and you're the one who's doing a lot of the work or most of the work, and you're the creative one.
Yep.
And then everyone's getting paid the same and everyone gets the same admiration. Yeah, that's another aspect of it. That's terrible. That's terrible, because if you're working for yourself, all that is on you. Now, also, when it goes bad, all that's on you too. So that's why you have to, like I said, embody this figure in the Six of Wands, because if you look at all the other wands, all the other people, those could be people with normal jobs working for somebody else. They still have that staff, they're still creating, but it's down lower, it's touching the ground, and he's up there on the horse because he learned how to ride a horse. He learned how to master. He learned all that stuff. He got the laurel. So now he's showing everyone else another way. And the other thing is he's not scoffing or judging them, because some people just enjoy it, especially if you have like a trade or you're good with your hands. Sometimes it's better to work for somebody else and you're actually happy. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying if you're not happy, if you're happy in your job, truly, that's only up for you to decide. You could tell yourself you're happy, but some people really are. Like if you're a plumber, man, thank God, because if not, I'd have to smell my poop all day. You know what I'm saying? So like electricians, thank you, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be able to do this podcast. All the people who made this stuff, so it's not like I'm saying everybody should be a YouTube creator or whatever. It's not at all. So.
All right, so I feel like we've wrapped this up here. So the next part of the podcast.
Thanks, Ashley. Are you trying to say I'm talking too much? Is that your way? No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I see how it is. No.
So for the next part
that's me projecting, everybody. See, there's an example. Anyway, go ahead. I'm just tripping up the show.
For the next part, Brandon is going to describe this same card, but in a different deck, and we kind of give our initial thoughts and feelings there. But I am going to have to give us like a pin for a second. I just need to, somebody just called me. So can we just put a pause here and I'll be right back?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
All right, everybody, we're back. Ashley, see, she doesn't get many phone calls, like once every 2 years. So she was excited to get a phone call.
I know, even though it said like scam likely, I was like really excited to answer it.
I'm glad you sent that $1,000 to that Nigerian prince. He's definitely going to love you now. All right, everybody.
Well, and he's going to leave me his $18 billion. That's how it works. So.
Oh, I thought you were more interested in love. No. True love on the phone, everybody. Just like the 80s or 90s or whatever. All right, so back to our podcast. We're going to be breaking down the Six of Wands in the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck. So this card, it's very easy to describe. There's 6 wands and they're all in different X patterns. And the outside wands it looks like lilies at the top, and the 2 in the center the 2 in the center, I guess you'd say, would have phoenix heads. And then the 2 in the middle have really elaborate, like wing, kind of like a headdress, I would describe it. And then there's flames in the middle where the wands intersect, and you have a purplish, like gray background, and it says victory.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I like this card so much better than the 5. I mean, who's going to like the cards of like disappointment and strife and stuff like this? But what I do love is the transition from the 5 to the 6 in this deck, because so first off, let's talk about the color purple. For me, the color purple is the color of like royalty, but it also is very calming. So I feel like you have that victory, you have that success, and you have these wands. So you have the lotus and like the phoenix that you saw in the 5, but on top of that, you don't just have those phoenix wings, right? You see that it's like these wings, but it's like the eye of Horus. And it's a lot more colorful, whereas the card that we talked about last time, the 5, it just felt like you just felt like dragged down by it. This one, the eye of Horus kind of gives you that clarity of like, you had all these obstacles to overcome, you overcame them, and now you have this clear path in front of you of what you should do for success.
Yeah, I like it. When I'm looking at this card, it really it embodies that same mastery, I guess I'll say, of the Six of Wands and the Rider-Waite. And it's really has to do with the flames at the intersections of these wands, because it looks like it's kind of like a perfect alignment, and wands represent fire anyway, so this is really the point of creation.
Mhm.
You know, so it's if you think of the six too and what that represents, yeah, I mean, it's a really great card. And the purple too, I like how you pointed that out, because that's the card of royalty, like you said. And if you think of what purple is made out of, the blue and the red, the masculine and the feminine energies working together correctly.
Mhm.
And that's just really symbolized, you know, by the background. And then again, the lotus, the phoenix, and then the wings. And phoenixes, lotuses, these are all symbols of self-mastery, self-transformation, getting to know yourself. You know, like the butterfly. So you can even look at the wings on the top and the middle ones, kind of like a butterfly. So yeah, this is a
And you know what I
card.
feel like? So the word that it says here is victory, but I also want to talk not necessarily about a physical victory, but like the victory over your own thoughts and feelings, that feeling of confidence and that feeling of motivation. It kind of is like it's giving you this point of like, now you have that confidence in yourself that you can do it. It might not be the easiest road, but you're going to progress, and you're going to be able to overcome any kind of hardships that are there, because you know you can. That, I think, is the hardest thing to overcome, Brandon. That is the mental state.
Yeah, it's a mental slavery, if you will. You become a mental slave to yourself, and therefore you create all these actions, engage in escapism. You know, drinking, like addiction's a good part of this. So somebody, what happens is they get stuck in a loop, and in order to get that dopamine or to feel good, they perform this action, whatever it is. So say it's like a drug, and they're okay for then, they get their fix and they're all right for a while, but then the despair sets in. It's just like a cycle, so they have to do it all over again. But if you can rise above that, like we talked about, the phoenix, baby, like the pendulum swing, rise above it, you can conquer it and master it, and then you could get to know yourself better. And then, like we said before, you can properly love your neighbor. You know, how can you love your neighbor as yourself if you don't love yourself?
Right. Right.
Ta-da!
And so I watched this movie yesterday. Like I said, I'm trying to get through these 100 movies, and the movie was called Yankee Doodle Dandy. And I know it's such a funny name, but it's actually the guy who wrote Over There, you know, from World War One, like over there,
Oh
over there.
yeah,
Anyway, so
that
but
bastard.
there was this point in the movie where it was like nobody wanted to work with him. They thought he was like they didn't think he was talented, and they thought he was arrogant or whatever. And he literally just turned it around, and it was that mental turnaround of then all of a sudden it was like, and not necessarily the best example because he like really manipulated people in order to get money, and but then it was like he created his own narrative, and people are they just follow, right? They're just like sheep. So if I say like I'm the best whatever in the world, people are gonna be like, oh, she's the best, you know, she's the best whatever in the world, because they don't know. That's what he did, you know, and became incredibly successful. He had to, you know, convince a couple people, and then all of a sudden he had this huge career. Sorry, I was just really motivated by the movie last night.
No, that's probably the path to success for a lot of people. It's just it could be used in a negative or positive way. You know, are you going to make it? Are you doing it because you want to make a song to march millions off to kill themselves, or do you want to make it to, like, you know, do a sweet podcast about tarot cards? You know.
Oh, we could have a whole podcast talking about the difference in mentalities and thoughts in the different wars and conflicts. Watching all of these old movies, it's just an eye opener.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about this Six of Wands?
No, just maybe more, because if someone's listening to this for the first time, they might be like, Aleister Crowley, isn't he evil? Kind of the theme that we talk about here is that any kind of creation or any symbolism can be used in a positive or negative manner. And the way that we always talk about using things on this show is about getting to know yourself and to getting to heal yourself and to work on yourself. And yes, this could probably be used in a evil, nefarious fashion. You know, if you're trying to contact some entity, some dark entity in another dimension to help you control other people, I don't know, whatever, you could do that. But if you're just using this to look within, to get a better picture of what's going on with yourself and the world, I think that it could be used in a good way. So, you know, so despite them, so even if he was evil, then fuck him, and I'm using his system to help people. So that's even worse. Now he's spinning his grave. He's like, damn it, I wanted evil to be done. And I'm like, no. But, you know, I don't think it's that black and white. But anyway, you know, that's how you could look at it. So what about you, Ashley? You have anything else?
I don't. I think if you're just listening for the first time or you're not following us, you should follow us on your Instagram. We are at Terrible2, TAROTBULL, the number 2. We have our new Facebook page, The Terrible Podcast. We're on Spotify now, iTunes. You can watch our videos on YouTube to see what we look like when we're recording. Brandon always has these fun backgrounds, and I'm always just kind of hanging out, lounging. And if you'd like, you could actually also book a reading with us. Either one of us. That would be really, really fun. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. And if you're not sure who to choose, just flip a coin. Heads for Ashley and tails for me. And then, I don't know, that sounds like a good one. And also, if you're not sure, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts or watch them, you can get that. If you go to terrible.com, right up at the top under where it says like The Terrible Podcast, there's a bunch of buttons. You'll see one for like iTunes, like you said, Spotify. There's a YouTube one. You know, just the feed, you could just listen to it there if you want. And then if you're on a Galaxy like I am, any of the podcast apps work, just put in Terrible and it'll come right up.
Yeah, you know, my mom was asking me today, like, she's like, how do I listen to this? I was like, just go to the website. It's going to be easiest for her to get there.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of The Terrible Podcast, and we will talk to you next week. Until then, stay terrible.